hit. Okay, now we've got Jalen. Hi, can you confirm that you can hear me, please? Go ahead. That should be it.
Yes.
Great. Okay, thanks. Good. So that means Jordan can also hear me and Tessa can hear me. That's good. Is that Jordan Charlton? Is that Jordan Charlton? Is that your last name, Jordan? Yeah, good. Well, get ready to read out loud your second reflection. Can you tee that up on your computer for us? And we will come to it shortly. You you can, if you would like, you can show your face when you're reading it, but if you happen to be shaving at the moment or doing some other very personal thing, then you don't need to show your face. But we're going to need to hear you. Does your microphone work? Oh, I'm in a pub. Okay. Then I'll read it out loud, okay? So you can hear me. That's fine. Because Jordan, that was a good second reflection. So you'll be able to hear me reading it. And of course, Tessa, maybe you could tee up your second reflection. Would you be ready to read it as well on your microphone? Yeah, good. Maybe even see you, but not as long as we can hear you and hear you clearly. Jordan's in a public place. Okay, so I'm just going to bring. Oops, yeah, just a sec. I'm just going to get the dashboard connected. Right now, you're seeing the normal, what's called signage here, and but it's got nice pictures of the global classroom. Oh, good. And it's kind of cool because it's not. There we go. That's really watch the images that have been prepared by communications and marketing here for the global classroom. It's really nice on the dashboard above me. So I'm just going to let that play for a little bit to kind of inspire people about the big picture that we take in this class. I'm going to shut the doors here and we're going to get launched. We're going to start flying. Good. So we should be, and we're up on YouTube now, so we're streaming there. And okay, that's fine, Tessa, as long as we can. Then I'll read it out loud too. Well, we'll see. Okay, I think if both Tessa and Jordan are having mic issues, in part because of Jordan's in a public place and Tessa may have an issue there, so I might read it then Tessa's out loud, but we'll see. It depends on our time. But good work, both of you, on your second reflections, as well as Serena Mohammed, who I think is watching the recordings only. Good work, Serena. Hi from the Global Classroom at a later date when you will be watching this. And Muskandeep Kaur as well. Musk, I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Good work. So let me just do a final little bit of tech here to make sure everything's working and we can get started properly. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to park the Cosmos to the side so we get, oh, it won't matter on the recording, but, and then the live chat, I don't think it will matter as well. So I'll just leave it there for now. We're good on the um, YouTube live stream right now, but so then just before we begin, let me welcome everybody to the Global Classroom, the Rotary Global Classroom at Durham College in Oshawa, Canada. And you can see above me on the dashboard the wonderful video that has been done by the college. Oops, now we're back to our normal images. So I'll bring up the class right now, and we can always return to that um, at a later time. So first, let's see if we're getting the smartboard up here. We were having issues with it earlier today. Yeah, it's still on the blink. So what we'll do instead is we'll bring up the space station. Um, that's good. So that's a live view from the space station. And then I will bring up the map of the world because I like to see civilization. And then over here, we'll bring up, that's good. So the dashboard now is up and running, minus the notes. Unfortunately, there's a tech issue, but when you're in the world of technology, there always are going to be tech issues, and you just have to work with them or work around them or take advantage of them. And so we've got that connected. We're looking good on YouTube. And so we have our microphones here. And finally, before I forget, I would like to hand out, as we begin today's Together on Earth class, remember from last week, we were looking at that whole issue of sustainability and sustaining it. And did I tell you a little bit about Repair Cafe at all? I did in Global Leader. Did I do it in Humanity's Destiny? Okay, because I want to hand out a card for you because this is something that you may be interested in. And oh, that's Carol. It's you. Okay, so Carol, here's yours. CC, how you doing? Brandon, over here. And then what's your name again? It's oh, Mediha. Yeah, hi. Nice to see you. Good, Mediha. And I think you've got one already, right? Okay. So from the Global Leader class this morning, Connor sometimes comes for Humanity's Destiny in the afternoon. That's great. So what you have in your hand is by way of reviewing a little bit from sustainability. I'd like to show you something that is a really great initiative. And I'm going to do a little bit of stick handling right now and go right to the internet and pull the website up on the fly, which is normally I tee everything up, but I think I've got things set up now so I can actually go straight to the web and pull up the website fast. And I want to show you something called Repair Cafe Toronto. And actually, I'm going to do something even fancier. I'm going to run a video for you that tells you about it, and then we can talk briefly about it before we begin officially today's class, which is all about Together on Earth is the official title of the class, the official topic, but it's really about freedom and democracy and the future of freedom and human rights on planet Earth in human civilization. And we may talk about some difficult things today as well, as in wars and conflicts and confrontations that people from different cultures have. But first, let me just review with you a little bit. And so you're looking at an initiative, really an initiative that I've been involved in for quite a few years. And full disclosure, my wife is the co-founder of this, and I help her when I can. And it's an amazing initiative. It's essentially people who love to fix things get together with people who need things fixed in a church or a community center or a school or an institution. They have some coffee and pastries and a kind of a cafe, as well as they sit and they fix things together. And it's been getting quite a bit of attention the last few years. There's been quite a bit of press on it. Um, and you can Google it and you'll see a lot of that's been written about it. But essentially, this is an initiative that I just wanted to let you know exists. And it's all about how we're trying to create a world of no waste. You might have heard of this term before, zero waste. And we can also think of it in terms of a world without waste. In other words, we're rethinking garbage. We're rethinking how we deal with all of our waste and how we can recycle and repair and repurpose and create what's called a circular economy in the world so that everything just moves around. Nothing goes into landfills anymore. There's no more waste. Things just get reused fixed and reused. And it's very much an important way of thinking about sustainability in the future. So I just wanted to show you this brief video that was done a few years ago when we were starting the Repair Cafe Toronto. Canadian Press came to do a little video on one of our cafes and talked to me at that time, and it will show you more about what this is, and then we can have a little discussion and move on to today's topic. So I think to find the video, I have to go to YouTube to do this, and if I enter the Spirit of Repair, Repair Cafe, it should come up. Nice, there it is, and I can share this, and I won't get hit with copyright infringement from YouTube because this is fair use. So I'm actually going to do something even better now. I'm learning how to do, which is I'm going to push out this video to everybody online, the recording. So you're going to see this video full screen in front of you with sync audio and everything, just as we're seeing it here. And YouTube will not shut down the live stream because this is fair use. So watch what I'm going to do, and that way, and this is like my big technical move of the week, and I know I can do it. I go over to Toria, and I'm going to share video here, and then I'll do this. Yeah, so here we go. I'm going to run this video for all of you online that speaks to Repair Cafe, tells you a bit about this initiative. And the reason I'm showing you this is we're just in the period of reviewing right now a little bit about sustainability and what we covered last week. I just want to tell you about this initiative that I think is really interesting. And here we go. So,
Beloved coffee maker
Oh, your morning friend?
won't start. Well, when I plug it in and turn it on, nothing happens.
Okay. All right. So,
Nothing. Well, when I plug it in and turn it on, nothing happens.
okay. All right. So,
Nothing whatsoever.
So,
a repair cafe is a place where neighbors help neighbors learn how to repair. They can sit with a fixer, have a cup of coffee, have some pastry, and learn and watch how something is actually fixed.
It's like surgery.
it is.
What happens is, as a person rides, the brake pads wear down, and you need to move this cable over a little bit so you can still, when you grab this, it still hits the rim right away and it stops you. Like, I just moved here and I was looking for something interesting and volunteer type to do. And this was like in the first newsletter that I saw, and I thought, wow, that sounds really awesome. It's just fun to get to tinker with this stuff. I don't get to do this day to day, so.
Yeah, this is such a great initiative. Like, people just throw away stuff that's broken.
It's very empowering. It gives people a sense that they can actually take control of those objects in their lives and hold on to them and understand them and get inside them, and it gives things more meaning.
A planetarium. It's a small, it'll project stars onto the ceiling. It wasn't rotating, and now there's nothing wrong with it.
The gear slipped out. It required taking apart to the total innards.
When you feel like you understand what a motherboard is inside your computer, when you can take apart your toaster, when you can learn how to fix your tire on your bicycle, these are things that give you a sense of some control and a sense of accomplishment. And it's not just about bringing your item in and giving it over to somebody to fix while you just go away somewhere. This is about you learning how to fix things around you, and that can be a metaphor for fixing things in your life. I love to kind of just sit and hang out and soak up the vibe here. I often say to people, this may sound a little bit corny, but what you see when you walk in here is humanity at its best.
We're going to be in hiding forever. With love.
Okay, just give me a moment to make sure the tech is all dealt with here, and then we can talk about this briefly, and we should be good. And I need to stop sharing the video, right? And then we'll come back. Good. So many things to click on, but I'm getting used to it. Okay. Great. So before we jump into today's topic, I'd like to actually ask the classmates online right now. I just want to check and make sure that they heard and saw this video clearly, and maybe just summarize what they saw. And then we'll talk here a little bit, and then we'll move on. But I just want to make sure technically it was working. So online, Tessa, or who's able to speak to us with their microphone right now? Is there anybody online that can use their microphone at the moment and jump into the class? If not, could you just put yes in the live chat to mean that you heard and saw the video clearly? Okay, so let's just make sure, and then we'll check. So Tessa, that was good right there. Let me just bring this full screen for a second, and I'll be able to see this more clearly. Yeah. So Jordan, you saw that clearly, and I'm assuming, yes, you did. That's great. Okay, so let me just come back to this. Good. Okay. So I'd like to ask some of you right now, just by way of reviewing this idea of sustaining it, how many of you like to fix things? Just raise a hand for a moment if you kind of like to get into things and fix them. I see a hand from Connor. Yeah, Brandon, Carol, a little bit. And we'll check in online if we can. Right now we have nobody on notes. So could you let me know, just keep an eye. Connor, could you keep an eye on the live chat if you see something come in? Great. Okay, so that way we'll be able to stay connected to the online classmates. So Connor has raised his hand, and Brandon kind of raised his hand, and Carol as well. Well, Carol, can you take a microphone now? Just sort of explain why you kind of like to fix things.
Well, sometimes make me relax and distract myself at the same time,
Yes.
but also have me to have the curiosity of mostly related to stuff like a little bit of technology. Maybe when I was small, I have the curiosity. Since I was small.
Small curiosity.
No, since I was small,
Oh,
sorry.
since you were small, sorry, yeah.
I had curiosity about things.
Right.
It's very curious.
And when you fix something, did you feel kind of like sort of satisfied?
Yeah, in some way, yeah, sometimes, yeah.
Yeah?
hmm
Can you hand the microphone to Connor and let him, because I'm kind of curious. This idea of fixing is very much our future in terms of being able to create more sustainability. Connor?
Yeah, I think you nailed it when you said that it's satisfying. I find that the ability to, let's say, destruct something and then rebuild it to repurpose it and use it again is kind of gratifying in a way, knowing that you can do something like that.
And when you hear the term a world without waste or zero waste, do you think that's kind of like pie in the sky, or do you think that that's something that we can really work towards?
In some ways, I'd say it is a bit of a pie in the sky, like you said.
Yep.
But in other ways, it is something that we can try to like refine and get very close to 100% perfect. I don't think we'll ever be able to get to 100% perfect, just because there will be waste in the world. That's just how humans are.
Yes.
But I think for the most part, we would be able to get pretty damn close.
And we, if we're going to be creating, more and more things in the world through our technologies, then that's creates the potential for more waste. And if there's more people on the planet, then that means there's going to be more stuff that's created that then becomes waste. So we have to deal with that, right? We really have to deal with that. And that's part of one of the what I'm getting at with you, Connor. It's the idea that if we're going to be able to live together on this planet with more peace, with more justice, with more what we call verdancy, more green stuff, things that are growing, not things that are dying, then we have to learn new ways of how we manage waste. That's the idea.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah, good. Okay, I just want to introduce you to also the idea that maybe you would like to start your own little repair cafe. Who knows? So please spread the word, and if you have any follow-up questions that you'd like to talk to me about in terms of the repair cafe, you can always reach me via email. All right. So before we get going as well, I have some other things that I want to review with you. And first, always, I'd like to check in with you and see if you have any questions, anything that you need to address for the class, or something that's on your mind regarding your future or our future. This is a class all about the future. Okay, so we're really looking ahead. So if there's anything, please feel free right now. Otherwise, I'm going to move on and check in with some of the reflections. Remember too, as we're thinking about the future this semester, remember we started with this idea at the beginning of, are you pessimistic or optimistic? Or do you stand somewhere in the middle? So if you could right now, before we really get going, take a moment to do a little bit of a gut check. Just a little bit of a gut check. Where are you today on the optimism, pessimism sort of scale? Is it a sliding scale? Are you still where you were at the beginning of the semester? Has it gotten worse? Are you getting more pessimistic based on what you're seeing happening around you in the world, or what you've been learning? Or are you feeling more optimistic, or just still more or less somewhere in the middle? You don't need to say anything. I just want you to do a little gut check at the moment, because I'm going to always check in with you throughout the semester to see where you stand on this. A lot of how we see the future in our own day and in the world around us has a lot to do with our optimism or pessimism or something. We call that our worldview. So it's really important to be able to have that gut check with yourself on a regular basis to make sure that if you are pessimistic and you feel that the world is getting darker and more difficult and more entangled and problematic and falling apart, maybe it's not the world, maybe it's just you. And maybe that the way you're looking at the world is colored by how you feel about yourself. I'm just putting that out there for all of you, that you can think about the world and the future in realistic ways. You can't separate yourself from this process. And that's why I come back to optimism and pessimism. So Tessa and Jordan, make sure you do that little gut check, and we'll check in with you in a moment. And then I think I'm going to read out loud something that Jordan wrote for his second reflection. And I also want to talk about the reflections in general, because I have an update to tell you about how you're going to be assessed for the rest of the semester. So let's see if I really get your attention. Nikos. Okay, Grayson's good. Carol. Connor's here. Madiha's here. Brandon, I know he's here. Cece, and is it Mubarak? Mubarak. Mubarak, you also wrote a pretty good second reflection as well. Way to go. Okay, the important stuff, your grades. Everybody, I'm sure, is listening. You might have noticed that there has not been a first assignment assigned. It was supposed to be worth 20%. It's not going to happen. That's the good news. Okay? Yeah, I see Nico is happy about that, but you have to listen to the whole newscast. Well, the reason that happened is I'm a bit overwhelmed right now this semester with a lot of students, the most I've had, 202, and a lot of things happening in this room. So I just didn't have time to assign it and deal with it. So it's on me. But it's also based on the idea that I noticed something when I've been reading the reflections. The reflections are generally very good. And the problem that I thought I was going to have this semester of people using AI and ChatGPT is not as prevalent as I thought it would be. I'm for the most part, like 90% of the time, I have not had to think about how am I going to deal with this student and how should we talk about this and and not issue a grade at this point. Essentially, I was impressed with everyone writing about what's really happening in this class. And also people were saying things in the reflections like, well, they really like doing these reflections and they wish they had more time and space, like maybe more words instead of 300 words, 400 words. And so I got to thinking that maybe I have a solution that would help both me and all of you. So essentially what I've done is this. And if you don't like this, we can talk about it. Come on in, Tony. For your midterm grade that is coming next week, next Tuesday is reading week, and you're going to get a midterm. It will be based on your first two reflections, worth 12.5% each. That's 25% of your overall grade. In the second half of the semester, you're going to get busier in this class, but there will only be a final assignment. There will be 3 more reflections, just like what you've been doing so far this semester, this half of the semester. So there will be reflection 3, reflection 4, and reflection 5. They will be worth 15% each, not 12.5. And they will be 100 words longer. So you will have more words to go on if we'd like, because quite a few students have said once they get going, they really would like to have more space because they like the ideas that we're talking about in this class and they want that time. So you will have 425 to 450 words, each reflection worth 15%, but the final assignment, the big assignment, still stands at 30%. So if you do the math, you will see all of that comes to 100%. So I'm leaving, a few minutes right now to discuss this because I'm changing the way you are being assessed this semester, but it's not really a big change. I'm simply just removing one assignment and I'm then increasing the weighting on the reflections and increasing the length. And everything that you're doing for me this semester in terms of being assessed are all reflections. You're thinking about what we're dealing with in class. And then in the final assignment, there will be a big assignment sheet for that. That too will be a reflection, but will include research. You will be able to do a video if you want, or you can write it. So you'll have lots of options. But the critical way I'm assessing all of you through the semester is not through tests, not through exams, not through quizzes, which is what you may be used to. I'm doing something that I think is more deep and meaningful in terms of how you're absorbing the ideas in this class. I'm looking at how you're thinking about them, and that is how you write about them, how you process. Does that make sense? Mubarak, are you good, Tony, with that? Yeah? Okay. So if in case you missed it, Tony, I've blown off the first assignment, so there's no first assignment. So essentially this semester it's going to consist of 5 reflections and 1 assignment. I've made that change, okay? And are you good with that? Yeah, okay. Have you? I think you've done your reflections, or you've done, yeah. And have you been enjoying? You've done one, okay. So make sure you get the other ones done, okay? If you get a low midterm, it's only because you got a 0 on your one of the reflections, but you know you'll have lots of time to make that up in the second half of the semester. Okay, great. Do you like reflecting, like thinking? Yeah, that's good, because I feel it's a more grown-up way of assessing learning. Also, I do think that the ability to write well is also a reflection of how you think. And if you don't write so well and you have a disability, that's one thing. I can deal with that and get you help. But if you don't have a disability and you're not writing well, chances are you don't think very well. You're a sloppy thinker. You're a lazy, sloppy thinker who's afraid of the written word. And I can help change that. I can help make writing for you more enjoyable because it's a critical skill in the world. You must be able to write well, and that means spell well, knowing where to put a comma, how to, say a complete thought. I mean, there's so many things. I know because I not only have I taught it, but for many years I was a professional journalist, a director, a producer, writer. I mean, I know what I bring 45 years of experience. I actually started as a 16-year-old reporter at City TV in the 1970s. Go and Google it, and you will see me as a 16-year-old or 17-year-old. So I was already reporting, and then I went on and did all sorts of other things. So let's say, I love being here because I think I know what I'm talking about, and I want to make a difference in people's lives because the world is messed up, and I know it's going to be on your shoulders to fix it. So maybe I can help with that. And well, enough said about that. Okay. So Tessa, Jordan, do you have any issues with what I've just said? To make it easy for you, if you don't, just say nope in the live chat, okay? And let's see here, Nico, makes sense, okay? So let's see what happens in the live chat. Give that a second, and then we will move on. And I'm going to tee up a reflection here. And that is, well, let's see. Hold on. Well, let's see. Mubarak's here. So let's do Mubarak's, and then we'll get to Jordan's. I'd rather read out loud some reflections where the student can come up and actually read it. So why don't you come? Weren't you here last week? Yeah. No, Mubarak, were you in a seat last week? Why don't you come back again? Since you're doing some good work. And read out loud a reflection. And you know what? You can read it from here, okay? Yeah. Let's and then we'll keep this train going. There you go. You know what? You can stand and you can just look at it up there, okay? And okay, let's do it.
My second reflection. This reflection is centered around our discussion in our October 4th class, which was on the next big thing. Before discussing the objective of what we thought the next big thing would be, our professor asked everyone in class who would like to go to the moon. He asked us to raise our hands or voices if we'd like to go to the moon. Not to my surprise, no one raised their hands or voices as no one wanted to. Who would want to leave their planet to go to the moon? I do believe that outside of humanities destiny class, some individuals would like to go to the moon. I am not one of them. As our discussion began on what the next big thing would be, we began to note ideas such as the global economy, cyclones, brain shapes, neural links, technology, environmental impact, marine science, random impacts, flying cars, manifestation, the third world war, robotics, and virtual reality. These ideas were diverse and different. They showcased the different thoughts and concerns of the class. Personally, the idea that stood out to me first was brain chips and Neuralink. The thought of inserting anything, never mind chips that had technology into the brain, didn't sit right with me. I knew so much about Neuralink, but I couldn't believe that there was a corporation striving to develop implementable computer interfaces into the human brain. If brain chips or Neuralinks were ever to become mainstream, I think they will surely strip us of our humanity. In conclusion, the next big thing is still unknown, even with the numerous ideas we have about what we think it might be. We cannot predict exactly what it is, but I think as humans, the best we can do is have some sort of preparation for the future. Even though the future is full of uncertainty, it is also full of numerous positive possibilities.
Let's give the man a hand for just coming to his feet and, you know, throwing himself into the middle of this with no warning. Way to go. You did it again this week, Mubarak. So you come sit here for a second and be ready to take some questions. And, you know, it's not only Tony who has to, you know, be put in the hot seat and, you know, field some tough questions. But, okay, so let's talk about this a little bit. This is learning from each other. This is a student who I have determined did not use AI to write his reflection. And thank God, Mubarak. Most students are not this semester. So I've already said that's very positive. It's happening. People are really thinking about this stuff. Any questions for Mubarak about what he said? Do you think he's right? Tony, you agree? Yeah? And what about this idea of stripping us of our humanity? Huh. Yeah, sure. Okay. Go ahead.
I agree 100% because I feel like once they start inserting things in our brain, they're gonna find a way to somehow still control us, our thinking or our patterns or whatever, or even to just even if you look at it as a scientific approach, it's still it strips away of our freedom of just being who we are, like and even being private and things like that. So like I do agree with him.
Good. Well, I'm
But
glad.
and that is a great topic as well. Like we can go all day with that.
If you notice in the bottom right-hand corner of the dashboard, I will always now be putting the Vimeo website. I've just put a little bit from the Vimeo website, which is the global class has had a Vimeo page for about 13 or 14 years now. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Tony. And so there's a lot of content there of what we've done over the years as we've been building it up. But a student did a wonderful video once for her final assignment on humanity. And I started to realize more and more that what we do in this classroom, in this space, is we explore the story of humanity, humanity in all its dimensions, whether it's humankind, or we used to say mankind, or humanity in a deeper level, which is the human bond, or humaneness, or compassion. So you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner there the word humanity going by because that's Nadine's looped video that I'm putting there all the time to remind us of this idea of humanity and what is happening to our humanity or what is happening to humanity. Because humanity is what we call a freighted word. It has several profound meanings. So just keep in mind that this is an important thought because we're going to be talking more about this idea of humanity today when we explore more this idea of together on Earth. Here's what I'd like to just remind you of. When we voted on the next big thing, you chose Elon Musk's Neuralink brain chip. Why would you do that if now we have Mubarak saying and Tony agreeing that it would strip us of our humanity? I'm confused. So I think you need to help me with this. Well, yeah, but you guys voted for this. I didn't. And now are you saying you're voting to end humanity? because when we did a vote, were you here for that class? Oh, you weren't. Okay, Tony, because I'm sure Tony would have stuck his flag for not Neuralink, but maybe not. Okay. So could somebody in Tessa and Jordan, I'd like you guys to think about this. Connor, I think, is going to say something. Could you clarify this for us, Connor?
Well, I was just thinking more like, I guess, playing devil's advocate here. But with Neuralink, I think one of the cool advantages that it does promote is that, let's say someone is paralyzed, the Neuralink, when it's placed inside of their brain, it will be able to connect that part of their brain that is now non-functioning, and so it'll actually allow them to use their legs once again, or the extremity that has been shut off in their own heads for a while. So I think that is kind of interesting, but I do understand the other side of it, where you are putting something inside of your head, which obviously we know things are always being tracked. And so it does open up that possibility as well. But I do think it is very interesting from a scientific and possible medical advancement
perspective, right? So Mubarak, did you think that maybe in spite of this being well written, not done by a computer, you were comprehensive, you dealt with a lot of the things in the class, do you think that maybe you were being a bit close-minded? I'd like you to think about this, okay? I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but this is how we learn. Why you said it'll strip us of our humanity, and now we have Connor saying right now, wait a minute, for all those people with some sort of disability, and maybe this could help.
I won't say I was really being close-minded, but I get his point. It was a strong one.
Yeah. So would you change what you said there now based on what Connor said, or would you not? What would you do now that you've heard this different perspective? How does that make you think about this darker view or more negative view of this chip?
Probably will still keep it the same, to be honest.
You would? And why would you do that?
I just don't like the thought of it.
Isn't that interesting? Wow. Wow. Yeah, go ahead, Tony. Yeah. Connor, give Tony, and I think we have a third mic.
Third?
I don't know where that mic is.
But
Go ahead. Yeah.
So that is very interesting. I didn't know that, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I feel like it's such a powerful thing that it's gonna start not being an option to so maybe somebody in that situation would want to have that, to be able to move their legs again, which I would.
Sure.
But I feel like it's gonna stop becoming an option if we want it, and to an obligation that we need to have it.
So it should be an option.
It should just stay an option.
It stays an option. So and isn't that's about living in a freer society?
It's like the COVID shot, it's like they try to strip it from you to have an option of having it. They said you must have it now.
Right, exactly.
So I feel like it's such a strong,
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm trying to say? Sorry.
It's an option. You'd like it to be there as an option to be used in a way that could help people.
Help you and give you an option, but I feel like it's not gonna stay an option, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, we will see, but it's a very good point. And in fact, I can sort of stop you for a moment to help you understand that we're starting to move now into today's content, which is about freedom and human rights and the idea of choice. Choice. Okay. Mubarak, anything you want to add before I let you go? You're good? Thanks for reading that and for taking these a little bit more pressure up here, and you handled it well. And I want to move on now to today's big content. And we're going to be touching some raw nerves today. So I just want you to get ready, okay? When we start talking about togetherness, together we're leading the way here. When we're starting to talk about how we can live together on planet Earth as a connected civilization that is getting even more entangled because things that happen everywhere in the world happen here now too, because of social media, because of television, because of communications and electronics. So I want to just help you to get ready for this so that you also feel as we discuss this that we can discuss anything in this space together. That's what a classroom should be, a real classroom. But when we discuss these things, we do it in a way where we recognize our basic humanity together, that we are all human beings here. And we are all trying to understand how to deal with the future. Everybody thinks about the future and how that should go or might go, or they're terrified of how it may actually go. But everybody is here thinking about the future because that's why you're in school. You're learning, you're getting educated so you can get a good job, so you can succeed in life. So the fact that you are sitting here right now has a lot to do with your future. Okay. So I'm glad that Mubarak mentioned something in there because I came here today thinking about this and I wasn't sure how to bring this up. This may seem like a crazy question. Brandon, are you listening? When you look at the world right now, the wars that are happening in the world, and we'll talk about them in a moment, is it possible that we are irreversibly sliding towards a third world war? Or is that just dystopian, pessimistic, dark thinking about humanity that overlooks our ability to celebrate the world we have created in which all people, all freedoms, and all rights are respected in freer, more democratic societies? Or is something happening? Are we beginning to slide backwards to a meaner, more savage, more intolerant time where people don't really respect each other's cultures and differences anymore? When a white person has certain stereotypes about a black person, or a Muslim feels a certain way about a Jew, and vice versa, or an indigenous person is tired of reconciliation and is impatient with its pace and believes that the white man, the European man, will never, ever understand what they did to us, the Iroquois, the Ojibwe, and others in this part of the world. In other words, in all these things that we have won for ourselves in time, respect for each other's dignity, to the point where we ride subways together, people of all different cultures, and on every single subway car, what will you see in the corner? The Ontario Human Rights Code. Are we going to blow that up and say it doesn't matter anymore? And will we use our technologies and machines to bring about even greater destruction to human beings? You have to remember, this is 2023. It's not 1945, which was the end of the Second World War. We know what happened at the end of that war. Atomic weapons, the mushroom cloud, devastation that can cause such great destruction to humanity was used. We are now many decades ahead of that. Are we moving towards that, where we are going to use our weapons now of mass destruction to carry out this kind of savagery? Are we going to continue to have to watch the newscasts now and get used to the idea of missiles flying into people's homes and blowing people up and obliterating communities and individuals as if it were just another video game? And we watch that while we're having a beer? Or have we learned something? For all that we know, what have we learned? Nothing. And it's all just a slide backwards to a darker, more violent, more savage time. And you, Brandon, you will be the ones who will have to carry the burden of this on your shoulders to make decisions about what to do. And there may be war. What would you do? That's dark. That's very, very dark. But I'm only presenting this as a possibility. I'd like to ask you what you think and why I would even say these things now. What is it happening in the world that would make your professor tell you that we need to talk about this and think about this? I'm going to stop there. Now, some of you may have some things to say. We're going to say them, but always remember that underneath, we are all human beings. We are humanity. Humanity at its core is humaneness, is compassion. It's a meaning in the word. So, it doesn't matter what we say. We all know we're together. But what is the future of this togetherness? Okay? Is that making sense? Mediha, do you understand? Nico, makes sense? Okay. So, before you start, Tony, I will go over and make some notes when I think we need to make some notes, okay? Just because as things are moving a little quickly, I want to give you a chance to really interact with each other and with me, but there's some insight that's going to come out of this. And it started with the question, are we irreversibly sliding towards a third world war? Look at that. Mubarak talked about it. Let's see. Okay.
Most definitely.
Most definitely. Okay. So let's start. Tony, do you want to come up here again so we can see? And who feels ready to? Do you want to come sit here? Yeah, sure. Okay. So let's remind ourselves of something that we're about to witness, if I don't have to tell you. And I'm saying this in the aid of education to help you understand what our future is. That man is black, that man is white, and I'm Jewish. And she's Muslim. And he's black. Now, before I go on, I'm doing this for a reason, so we can talk about togetherness moving forwards, the human race on planet Earth. If you feel uncomfortable with the way this is going and you feel offended in any way, please say so, and I will stop. I don't believe we can learn anything unless we have real discussions. Did you feel offended by me saying that? Did you feel offended? Did you feel offended? Okay. Did you feel offended? Anybody? Okay. Great. Okay. Tony's going to start. Most definitely, he just said.
Yeah,
Can you
so-
explain a little bit? Yeah.
I said most definitely because fortunately and unfortunately, some people's religion, some people's thoughts do infringe on what we believe is human rights. So if we keep putting us involved in how other people believe they should live, then I believe people are gonna fight against that, tooth and nails, their customs, their way of life, and things, and that's what's gonna create another war. And it's just how life is going. I understand human rights. This is why I love Canada.
Yeah.
I feel like everything's equal. Everything's, everybody has an opportunity to become whatever they want to become. But I do also understand there's customs in life where people don't want to change their customs, right? So if we keep infringing on that, then they're going to fight against it. And that's what's going to create it. And the way life is going, if you look on TikTok, Instagrams, everybody's looking at how crazy other parts of the world is, not really understanding that that's just their way of life, you know, their elders' way of life, their elders' way of life, you know, and so yeah, I do believe it's on the verge
And,
to World
and,
War.
and before Connor speaks to this, so when will the war take place and who will be fighting it?
I think it would definitely be a war against religion. That's just it's a war against religion, a war against your faith, what you believe in, you know, and that's something that people will die for, you know. So that's why it will definitely go into a war because people are willing to sacrifice their life for what they believe in.
Do you think that after 70 years or 80 years in which nobody has used a weapon of mass destruction since the end of the Second World War, it hasn't happened? It almost happened in 1962 with the Cuban Missile Crisis. Do you think that people will dig in so much into their religions and the positions that somebody's going to use a weapon of mass destruction?
100%. I believe because that's out of all the wars, what is more important? You know, is like I guess you could say Hitler. He had a belief. You know, so
That's right.
I guess you can say that he had a purpose, a way of life. But we're talking about religion. Religion is something doesn't just start with somebody's thought. Religion is something that is carried on generations and generations and generations. So I do believe people will fight way harder. People were willing to lose every last bit of it. It's like us fighting
For their religion.
for their religion, right?
Wow. Huh. Connor, you want to speak to? I'm gonna put notes. You guys keep going. This is not working. I can't get the board up there, but I'll get these things down. Keep going, okay?
I don't think it's irreversible. I think most things can go back to how we want it to be. At least that's the optimistic side of things. I do understand the whole idea, like humans' nature, like throughout history, we have violence in our history. We are known violent. We have taken over the world pretty well at it, I'd say. See me, we're the top of the food chain. But I do believe that because there is going to be always conflict in ideas and religion, there will be wars between countries. I would just hope that it doesn't get to the point where it's a world war again, because the world war brings in the whole idea of everyone in the world at battle, at war. So if we can avoid that, that would be ideal. And even talking about religion in this, even in the Bible, it says like the world will come to a war again where it's the East versus the West. So eventually that is a large possibility to happen. The best we can do right now is just go back to our moral compasses and try to just stay within our own boundaries. And if we can work with each other within those boundaries, then fantastic. If we don't, then just we'll stay on either side of the border.
Can I put a pin in that right there? Is because of social media and everything like that, I feel like going back to where we were is just going back to being naive. So now people are more aware of what's like Africa, for example, their way of life. And they probably think, oh, they're crazy. They're what's the word I'm looking for? Barbaric. You know, but they've been living that way of life forever. Right. So now we're just more aware of all the messed up way of life everywhere else. And I feel like we're kind of infringing in it because it does look crazy, right? Like arranged marriage, holy, like that's so crazy, but that's just their way of life, how they've been living. So because we're becoming more aware of everything, I do believe that's what is going to create, because I will fight for what I believe in, freedom, you know?
Sure.
As a Canadian, I will fight for that. Just like in another country, they will fight for the lack of freedom, you know, the lack of an opinion, you know, for women, for example, and they're willing to fight for that. So
I'm going to read you something.
you know what I'm saying?
Tony's touching on something really important. Is the word freedom. Now, I would ask, if possible, Cece, would you be able to come closer and sit on that couch over there? Yeah. And Madiha, would you be able to join there? Just and Brandon, same. And Mubarak, why don't we talk together? I know this might be a little more difficult. If you are not comfortable with that, then you don't have to come. Okay? I respect that. But if you would like to understand something about our future and your future in a way that I think will be meaningful, I think you want to be here. And we also want to hear from you. Now, Tessa and Jordan, Tessa, do you have a microphone yet, or are you both still without live tools? But are you following?
Can you
all
hear
of it?
me?
Great. Yes, we can. Excellent.
Okay, perfect. I didn't know if it was working or not.
Yeah, great. Tessa, is there anything you'd like to say as we're going to talk for another 20 minutes and then we're going to conclude, okay? But we're now coming into something really important, which is the future of freedom, the future of everybody's freedoms, the future of rights. That's what it means to be together on this planet today. We all are living together in a world that has become more free. And I can show you some interesting data about that. But are we willing to accept the consequences of everybody wanting to be more free? That's something different. Okay? So, Tessa, is there anything you want to say to this?
I mean, I more so know a bit more about like the history of like gaining rights and stuff. I don't really know much about like the stuff that's happening now because I know there's a lot, but I tend to not look at the politics about it because sometimes it like too much politics and stuff makes me sad. But like I know how like women had to fight for rights and like different like cultures had to fight for their rights and religions and everything. So
Absolutely.
I feel like it's definitely something that can divide our society and then also bring our society together depending on which way it goes.
Without going into too much history, I will simply say that when you look at the overall arc of world history, we tend to say that the arc has been towards greater and greater rights for the individual. That historically speaking, most societies were very authoritarian in their government structures, and we've broken through that into something more democratic over the last 300-400 years. And the one shining example of this is all the women who are part of the story. In history, they weren't there because the men were writing the history, they were fighting the wars, and the women were there, but they didn't have much power because of the way the world was. Well, that was a great injustice in humanity. That's been changed. But it may be lost, too. I want to read you something. Do you know the book Brave New World? Did you ever hear about it in high school? Aldous Huxley. It's a work of very important science fiction. And do you know the book Animal Farm or 1984? George Orwell, you might have heard of before. Some of the great science fiction writing of the 20th century that was written came out of the Second World War and the First World War. These were people thinking ahead about what was going to happen to our freedoms, having experienced through those wars the loss of freedoms in some of their countries. Of course, in the end, the victors in those wars were the democratic countries, but they also had their own problems. One of the science fiction writers of that time was Aldous Huxley, and he wrote a classic called A Brave New World. And this comes from one of his essays that he wrote about freedom. I want you to listen to this for a moment because it tells us something about how fragile freedom is and how there's no guarantee that the freedoms we have now will continue like this unless we protect them, unless we're vigilant. And he said, we can be educated for freedom, much better educated for it than we are at present. But freedom as I have tried to show, is threatened from many directions. And these threats are of many different kinds: demographic, social, political, psychological. Our disease has a multiplicity of cooperating causes and is not to be cured except by a multiplicity of cooperating remedies. In coping with any complex human situation, we must take account of all the relevant factors, not merely of a single factor. Nothing short of everything is ever really enough. Freedom is menaced, it's threatened, and education for freedom is urgently needed. And he wrote this many decades ago. Let's explore this for a moment, because if we're going to go into a period of greater conflict, as Tony says, that means that we haven't learned enough about respecting other people's rights and freedoms, and that we want to destroy maybe some of those. So let's hear what you have to say, Brandon, and try to understand something, because in understanding the future of freedom, we will understand something about whether we are moving towards war, greater conflict, more destruction, or something else that could be actually quite positive. And I'm going to show you a video with some very interesting data that might surprise you, Tony, about what's been happening on planet Earth over the last 200 years. Anyways, Brandon, let's give Brandon, I've got it. Hold on to it, Tony. Go ahead, okay?
The one thing I kind of was thinking about when he was saying that is that the way he was saying it, it feels like if we don't care about our rights or don't even know about our rights, how we know they're going to be inflected. A good example, I think a good example of this obviously is, can you say your rights on top of your head, like right now?
Yes. Do I say that again?
Do you know exactly all of your rights in Canada right now?
About copyright?
About everything.
Oh, I thought you meant copyright. I thought you were
Personal right.
referring to the
Personal
YouTube.
rights, anything about
no, I don't.
And so exactly, I don't even know anything about Canadian rights, but to be honest, I know about more of American rights because I watch a lot of like audits on YouTube about people auditing American police officers. So I don't even know our rights. And like I remember seeing one of an audit of a person in Canada, and I felt really thrown off because mainly it felt a lot more less freedom, a bit more invasive. Like basically, a good example is that basically, in the video, he was saying that the guy or the police officer was allowed to go ask and see it until he could. He had no reason to do until like the reason was shown.
Yes.
Couldn't be. He could kept asking over and over until he was shown the proof. And the person was like had like guessing he had tinted windows, but he just didn't want to show him. And he was allowed to do that. And he punched and he like hit his camera away. But like if that was in America, he would definitely get, that's not allowed what he's supposed to do because since one of their rights is, they have no right to incriminate themselves.
Well, we have a constitution, and we have fundamental rights and responsibilities as citizens. So they exist. The right to a fair trial, the right to assemble and protest, the right to follow the faith that we want without any kind of threat or violence against us. There are many different freedoms and rights that we have won for ourselves over the years that are enshrined in our Constitution. And it's a very important document. But I can't tell you what every single right is in that document. What I can tell you is that humans have evolved over a long period of time to come to respect each other's dignity, whatever that dignity may be, whether you are male, female, black, white, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, Buddhist, whether you come from one part of the world or the other. We have enshrined a basic equality and respect for each other into our laws. And that's a very good thing. So let's explore a little bit more this idea of whether you are worried about our future of living together on this planet in which we are in more and more contact. Our cultures are more and more in contact with one another through electronics, through traveling, through so many ways. And whether we are prepared to accept each other or whether we are more afraid of what that means. Let's try and understand this a little bit more. Specifically, it comes down to something like this. This is where it's going to get very difficult, this class. But I want us to be able to take this space that we have right now and explore this. We have a war that has just broken out in the Holy Land. Now, when Tony spoke moments ago and talked about how religion goes so deep, he's right. It goes to the very origins of our civilization, human civilization. Religion started even before there was a thing called civilization, when people were believing in their own way of trying to understand their purpose. Right now, we have a situation in a part of the world where two great religions, in fact, there once were three, but it's not as important to them as it is to these two anymore. The Muslim and the Jew, they lay claim to what we call Israel and the Palestinian territories, or Palestine. There's deep, deep connections to the earth and the soil for both faiths in that part of the world. And now there's a war that's broken out. The fifth war in the last 70 years between these two sides. So let me just acknowledge something right now. How many sitting right here would say they are Muslim? Mubarak, Mediha. And who's Christian? Yeah, okay. Who's Jewish? Let's let this sit for a moment and recognize what I just said at this time. If you need me to explain what's happening in the Middle East, I can. But let me just ask, do I need to? Are you all familiar with what's happening right now? Or, more or less? Are you aware of what's essentially, there is a war taking place, and let me just leave that for the moment, and I'll see how much comes out of this. What's the next thing that should be said in this class right now? There's a war that's broken out in the Holy Land. The Holy Land, around the Mediterranean, the Eastern Mediterranean, Israel, Palestine, Egypt, Syria, Lebanon, but essentially this area, Israel and Palestine, or Palestine and Israel, is greatly important in human civilization. In fact, all three of these religions, Christian, Muslim, and Jew, lay claim to Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, the great capital, as their spiritual homeland. That's where Jesus rose and from his death. You can go into a church there and touch the very rock where his crucifix was actually planted. The blood, they say, is still on the rock there. You can go and touch it. It's a great mosque there, and other important institutions and structures and things that represent the great Islamic faith, all there because Muhammad, great prophet of Islam, traveled there and was, well, you could help me understand this more, exactly what happened when he was there. And then there are the Jews who have their temples, and all of this plays out against a backdrop of 2,000 years of history. Three great world religions, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, all worshiping one God with Abraham as their prophet. Something like 2.5 to 3 billion of all human beings on this planet follow one of those faiths. That area has been fought over again and again and again for 2,000 years by all these three religions. There was once a thing called the Crusades, when the Christians and the Muslims were fighting over that. So now, where do we take this conversation so that we can ensure that that's happening over there now doesn't lead to a third world war? I'm confused. Because it could.
So, like, what made them start fighting? Exactly.
What made them start? What we would call the proximate factor, or the most immediate factor, Brandon, was that about 2 weeks ago, what we would call a terrorist group, an extremist terrorist group called Hamas, did what Al-Qaeda did in September the 11th, 2001, something like that. You probably know the event I'm talking about, 9/11. You're probably very young then. I remember very well. There were 20 young, fanatical, religious men following Islam who piloted 4 planes and drove them into the World Trade Centers in New York, as well as the Pentagon and others. And they did it under the direction of their leader, Osama bin Laden. There are groups of extremists, terrorists, fanatics, who will absolutely kill no matter what, as Tony said, for the sake of their survival of what they see as their own way of life being under threat. So 2 weeks ago, Hamas attacked Israel, sent missiles over, kidnapped many people, killed up to about 800 Israelis and Jews, and essentially that started this war when Israel declared war on Hamas and said, we're going to do to Hamas what was done to Al-Qaeda and what was done to the Islamic State. We're going to destroy these terrorists once and for all. But that may not happen. And these terrorists have friends, allies, Russia, China. They have nuclear weapons. Israel has nuclear weapons. Israel has an ally in the United States. They have nuclear weapons. We don't know where this is going to go. Russia's at war now, too, in another part of the world, in Ukraine. But it started with, Brandon, this group of terrorists who attacked and drew that other country into a war where we are now. That's just the beginning. If you want to go deeper, there's so much history here to try to understand, well, why would Hamas do that? And, what's going on in that part of the world that would lead them to want to strike the way Al-Qaeda struck at the US. But the point is, we need to understand something about whether we are drifting towards something where we are unable to live with religions and others that we disagree with and will go increasingly to war with. Madiha, as a Muslim, and you hear me saying this, what do you think? Do you feel uncomfortable talking about this? And even if you say something to me that you don't think I want to hear, and I will hear it, and we will talk about it, because that's what we do here. So please feel free and not threatened in any way. Please, go ahead. We're supposed to be enemies right now. Exactly. Not necessarily. You got it. What do you think is happening there right now? Are you aware? Okay. Do you feel threatened by me as a Jew talking about this? Okay. Yeah. Israel's using greater force and killing more people now in their reaction. Just yesterday, a hospital was bombed. 500 people were killed. It's said that Israel did that, but we have other evidence too that maybe not. Okay, so let's leave it there for now that we've at least demonstrated in this room, in this space, that a Jew and a Muslim can speak and respect one another and understand that we can talk, even if we may see things differently. That's just a bit, just introduction. Mubarak, you identify yourself as Muslim. What do you think about what I said?
I'm not really too like well informed about what's going on, but like from what I've seen, like the videos I've watched, it's said that Israel is the oppressors. So I'm not too sure.
Yes, yeah. Said that Israel are the oppressors. Sure.
So,
And do they ever talk about the history of that land and how these Palestinians and Jews and Christians have all laid claim to the very same land for so long? Do they ever talk about the longer history that there is, that it goes back?
into the longer history.
Do you know the story of David and Goliath? Probably you've heard. Do you know that it actually happened in that part of the world? That part of the world was once called ancient Canaan. Canaan, before it became Israel or Palestine. And there was a group called the Philistines who were there. And there were these tribes, Israelite tribes. And the Philistines were the power. The Israelite tribes were the little guys. And they fought against the Philistines. And in one battle, they defeated the big guys, Goliath. David and Goliath. The story we often tell about a small person confronting a large force. Actually, if you go back further into history, you will see that David was a very, very early Israelite, a Jew, fighting against an oppressive force, the Philistines. But it doesn't matter, Mubarak, if I tell a story that makes the Jew and look like they were the small person fighting against the oppressor, or it's the other way around. It's the Jew or the Israel being the oppressor. The point is, we have to move beyond this. As one woman said, the mother of a young Israeli woman who was murdered during this attack by Hamas. The mother, there was a group of young Israelis who were partying at a rave. And at 6 a.m, suddenly they're met with people with guns and missiles, and they were slaughtered. Absolutely slaughtered. The mother of one of these said, through her grief and tears, We need real peace now. Real peace. Otherwise, we will slide backwards. Well, what does real peace look like? I'm going to let you think about these things because I'm giving you a lot of very big stuff to think about today. And I'm going to ask you to really kind of do a bit of a gut check on this today. And let's conclude with this idea of what real peace might look like in the world going forwards. And then we're going to conclude, okay? This is by no means a comprehensive, exhaustive discussion about the Middle East and all the causes. It's an introduction to dealing with conflict between different cultures and ensuring that we can think of a way forwards that doesn't take us towards greater conflict or another war, a greater war. So let's just think for a moment. I'm going to write this down and then we'll stop. What does real peace look like versus pseudo peace? What does real peace look like? And if you can't answer that question, it's okay. But you know what? We're not going to be going forward together into the future if we can't answer that. Brandon? Sure. Go ahead. Yeah. And I'll try and stay because I want to hear from Connor by the end and then we're going to conclude. Okay. So get your thoughts together, Connor, and then we're going to. Brandon, go ahead. What does real peace look like?
I'm gonna make a weird example. Do you seen the show The Boys?
The Boys. I've heard the title, but has anybody seen The Boys? Okay. You know what? Okay. Go ahead, Brandon.
The idea of The Boys is about like superheroes who obviously show off for the camera, but sometimes they're not, as they seem in person. Like some of them are actually just assholes or rude.
Yeah.
Well, some are just obviously actually nice people, but are not still used to the camera life. So obviously they're just pretending to go all smile or get along.
Yes.
Like what I think of pseudo peace is kind of like maybe like the two country leaders just obviously just taking photos together. That's obviously like it should be. It should be off camera, off private. Talk to them personally. That should be real peace. So they're actually discussing what they think, not just a bunch of people just next to them taking photos, them obviously holding hands, just to pretend holding hands. Like
remove the pretend, remove all the media and all the attention, and let them actually speak together.
Yeah.
Remove, maybe I would say, our addiction to attention. Oh. It's good, Brandon.
I would
Okay, Tony?
I would say live and let live, right? I think peace is really live and let live. So we live how we we live how we want to live, and let whoever else in the world live how they want to live, and just live, and by doing that, if just say I'm Muslim, just say I'm Christian, and there's somebody who doesn't want to be Christian anymore, they should have the option to move somewhere else and to live how they want to live.
Oh, we come back to more options, not less. More and more. That is the essence, Tony, or one of them, of freedom. More options. Give people more access to more options so they can live more freely as they like. Don't reduce the options because then you're forcing people in. Increase the options.
Live and let live. Increase the options.
Way to go. We're going to live together on Earth in a connected, entangled society where on a subway, every day I got to go shoulder to shoulder with a homeless person, a mentally disturbed person who's shouting in the subway, Christians, Muslims, Jews, Buddhists, Chinese, Black, Jamaican, Caribbean, and it just goes on. but they're all diverse, of no threat to me. We're on the subway together because we're all trying to go to one place together. And it is diverse. It's so diverse, it's dizzying. But that's what more options means in a free world. It means you're not afraid of that diversity at all. It's like walking into a forest or a jungle and you see that tree, that flower, you know, this kind of home. Everything is so different, so much diversity. There's so many different kinds of plants, different kinds of trees, different kinds of flowers, different kinds of way of living there. But it's all okay because it's nature. We're okay in this. It's the diversity, not being afraid of it anymore. Increase the options, not be afraid.
I just have another one.
Yep.
Probably being obviously open about their issues. Because, like, let's say one of them had a terrorist attack and one of them's accusing it, it's like, okay, and they just say, hey, we have a problem with that. We like, if they be open and not, if they don't say anything, then they'll think it's probably their motive. But if they let them know what they're honestly about and being very open, they can probably help. You can, if you be very open about your problems and issues, like, for example, if America says what they're struggling with, then more likely other places or countries will understand and probably will try to help. Like, let's say if you're like a person who needs help and you're telling help, people around you will be understanding and try and help you with that. If you just keep that sheltered inside, people are not going to know and just probably think you're just having a weird motive or just probably have being rude to them for no reason.
Yeah, and they make up things about how you really are. But once you communicate that, they can see you're actually more like them than different. I'll finish this. We're going to conclude. I'm going to put a few more things down for the notes and then I'll post them. I'm also going to post the video for you that I was going to show you because we're running out of time and it's about 5 minutes and I want to make sure you get out of here in time. Unless, if you don't mind spending a couple of minutes over, I'm going to show you a video that might surprise you about something that's been happening in civilization. It's kind of hopeful about our ability to solve problems and not go to war, even when it seems like we should or will. Okay. I'm going to run it, all right? And Connor, just hold your thought, okay? And we'll, yeah, okay, sorry. I'm moving, yeah, and I just want to make sure we hit our time, okay? I want you to see this because I want to end today's class with the sense that this idea of a world war, of sliding towards that, we've been down this road before, and we didn't go to war. In fact, we just got through a pandemic. We can solve problems together. Here we go. I'm going to go to, and I'll put it on YouTube. It's called The Joy of Stats. And it's wonderful visionary, Hans Rosling. You may have heard of him before, but The Joy of Stats. And I want you to see something. Hans Rosling. Good. It's right here. Okay, let me get this on YouTube. Let's go to YouTube and watch it here. Good. Okay, I'm going to put this into the here, and we'll watch it together. Share video. Here we go.
Visualization is right at the heart of my own work too. I teach global health. And I know having the data is not enough. I have to show it in ways people both enjoy and understand. Now, I'm going to try something I've never done before. Animating the data in real space, with a bit of technical assistance from the crew.
So, here we go. First, an axis for health. Life expectancy, from 25 years to 75 years. And down here, an axis for wealth, income per person, $400,000, $4,000, and $40,000. So down here is poor and sick, and up here is rich and healthy. Now, I'm going to show you the world 200 years ago in 1810. Here come all the countries. Europe brown, Asia red, Middle East green, Africa south of Sahara blue, and the Americas yellow. And the size of the country bubbles show the size of the population. And in 1810, it was pretty crowded down there, wasn't it? All countries were sick and poor. Life expectancy were below 40 in all countries. And only UK and the Netherlands were slightly better off, but not much. And now, why start the world? The Industrial Revolution makes countries in Europe and elsewhere move away from the rest. But the colonized countries in Asia and Africa, they are stuck down there. And eventually, the Western countries get healthier and healthier. And now we slow down to show the impact of the First World War and the Spanish flu epidemic. What a catastrophe! And now I speed up through the 1920s and the 1930s. And in spite of the Great Depression, Western countries forge on towards greater wealth and health. Japan and some others try to follow, but most countries stay down here. Now, after the tragedies of the Second World War, we stop a bit to look at the world in 1948. 1948 was a great year. The war was over, Sweden topped the medal table at the Winter Olympics, and I was born. But the differences between the countries of the world was wider than ever. United States was in the front, Japan was catching up. Brazil was way behind, Iran was getting a little richer from oil, but still had short lives. And the Asian giants, China, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh and Indonesia, they were still poor and sick down here. But look what is about to happen. Here we go again. In my lifetime, former colonies gained independence, and then finally they started to get healthier and healthier and healthier. And in the 1970s, then countries in Asia and Latin America started to catch up with the Western countries. They became the emerging economies. Some in Africa follows. Some Africans were stuck in civil war and others hit by HIV. And now we can see the world today in the most up-to-date statistics. Most people today live in the middle, but there are huge differences at the same time between the best of countries and the worst of countries. And there are also huge inequalities within countries. These bubbles show country averages, but I can split them. Take China, I can split it into provinces. There goes Shanghai. It has the same wealth and health as Italy today. And there is the poor inland province Guizhou. It is like Pakistan. And if I split it further, the rural parts are like Ghana in Africa.
And yet, despite the enormous disparities today, we have seen 200 years of remarkable progress. That huge historical gap between the West and the rest is now closing. We have become an entirely new converging world. And I see a clear trend into the future. With aid, trade, green technology and peace, it's fully possible that everyone can make it to the healthy, wealthy corner.
Well, what you just seen in the last few minutes is a story of 200 countries shown over 200 years and beyond. It involved plotting of 120,000 numbers. Pretty neat, huh?
Get the audio. Sorry, the audio was gone there for a moment. I'm just concluding now, everyone, and just be prepared that after reading week, you're coming back and there's going to be more reflecting more regularly. Get ready for that, and you'll have a chance to really talk about these things. And Connor, I apologize. I wanted to hear what you have to say, but we'll come back to that. Okay. Thank you both for sitting here like this and sharing this, and Mediha for allowing us to begin to talk. Okay, thank you. And also Mubarak that we can do this and we can demonstrate it is possible to be intercultural. We need more of that. Okay, so thanks, guys. I'll see you soon. Thank you, Tessa and Jordan. And if there's anything you'd like to talk to me about, I'm here, Jordan and Tessa. Otherwise, I'm going to, take care. And Jordan, have a good day. Bye-bye. Okay, let me get the live chat because I see something that came in that I'd like to review. There we go. Okay, yeah, thanks. Take care. Okay, Tony. Very good. Well, I like you always come ready to talk, and have a good reading week. Okay, Tony? Yeah. Okay, what happened to my live chat? Oh, it's here somewhere. It disappeared. Come back. Where are you, live chat? I know you're here. I know you're here. What happened to you? Oh, okay. Something happened. And I don't know why. Okay, could be an extended. Nope. Okay. Well, let's end the stream then. And to do that, where did Toria go? Could be over here, right? I guess so, but it ain't. No. Okay. Take care, Nico. We'll stop the stream then. That's done. My stream is over.